Hey everybody, welcome to Geeksvana Live. I hope you're all extremely well. Thank you very much for joining me on this Friday evening here in the UK and afternoon over in the States, of course. So tonight we are going to be talking about the DJI Air 3. It's something which has, of course, been building. If you've got something to say about it, I can see already people are chatting about it in the chat already, so thank you. Do highlight Geeks at Geeksvana or just chat to each other as usual, of course, and we will highlight some of the conversation as we come later in the show, but we'll get the juicy bits out of the way, as it were, shall we? So really, unless you've missed it, you will know that DJI have announced a release next week on the 25th of July with this video, which is looping next to me here as the teaser. The release tagline is double up, and putting this together with the leaked pictures clearly showing the same shaped camera housing to the teaser trailer leads us in little doubt that this will indeed be the DJI Air 3 release that we have all been waiting for, certainly all been waiting for, so we can start perhaps having lots and lots of different leak videos, etc., coming out on YouTube. In today's video, we're going to be showing more details on the specs, as well as taking a look at the leaked unboxing video to see what it tells us. Also, I'll be giving my views on how the drone will be received by different drone buyers. And actually, really, depending on where you are in the world, you might be surprised how differently this drone will be received just based on the regional regulations and the impact they will have on where you can actually fly the drone. Now, just very quickly, if you are new here, if you're brand new to this channel, then do please hit that subscribe button. And if you're one of my awesome regulars, please do hit that like button nice and early, because it really does actually help the channel. I know it's one of those things you hear us YouTubers say an awful lot, but it does actually help. Right, let's get into the main meat of this one this evening, shall we? So we have an unboxing leak which has appeared online a few times already now, titled as an ASMR unboxing. Does anybody in the chat know what actually an AMSR unboxing actually is? I know you're obviously going to hear the noises, but anyway, a little bit strange. The video does give us, however, a decent amount of detail and a very close look at the drone itself, and of course the new RC2 controller, which is quite exciting. The video starts by showing the drone losing its packaging, as you might expect, and showing the drone being unfolded with the weight and noise objective required for a few of the regulators around the world. The long, thin arms are no surprise, giving the drone a wider footprint, which is evident in this leaked video. You can also clearly see the angled sensors on the back of the drone, and also they're on the front as it turns around as well, which obviously gives what the leaked specs have been describing as an omni-directional avoidance. Then we see the large props being popped on. The battery is rear loading and holds the power button and the battery life indicators there. The close-up of the front of the drone also gives us some more on-screen details, including the information that we've had already a few times now, which is the 1/1.3 inch sensors. The first one giving us a 24mm at f1.7, and then the wide angle camera is a 70mm with an f-stop of 2.8, and is actually described as a medium telephoto camera. So a medium telephoto camera, I have to wait to see what it's like. It'd be exciting to have one on this size of drone, but we're gonna have to see actually how useful it is perhaps once the drone is in hand. The bottom of the drone also shows the array of sensors, but there's one piece of important information there, which is full confirmation that the Air 3 does indeed hold a C1 label and has the 81 decibel sticker there too. Now, this is for the EASA/EU marketplaces, and we're going to come back to that in just a minute or two. Then the unwrapping of the RC2 shows us some more specs of that as well, with the on-screen specs on this particular video showing us the transmission range of 20 kilometers. Obviously, this is going to be OcuSync 4, presumably gained via the FCC mode rather than the CE mode. I think most of us over here in Europe and the UK know that. Has an 18 Mbps 1080 60 frame real-time live view, which I think is pretty cool. The controller also sports those new external antennas, which is fantastic. I mean, the internal antennas, I haven't had too much of a problem with my RC controller, but those external antennas are really going to help up the game, frankly, in my opinion, especially with OcuSync 4. Now, this does make the RC2, in my opinion, kind of the stealth release, which could actually be just as popular, if not more popular in some regions, than the Air 3 itself. Flight times are quoted as 42 minutes for hovering and 46 minutes flying forward. Now, that is a significant chunk more than the Air 2S stated flight time. We're going to have to wait and see what that actually means in real flight conditions. But to me, that does seem fairly promising. Now, stay tuned in this video for more details on some of the leaked specs. But first, I want to actually talk about and touch on some of the regulation factors which will have a positive and negative impact on this drone release, depending actually on where you live. Now, of course, in the US, there are no current restrictions on drone use in terms of being able to fly within a city or the weight of the drone, that type of thing. So that will not be a factor in terms of the purchasing decision there, and the drone will succeed or fail on performance and price alone. Now, we do have one unique part here, which is in the unboxing video. We see this required label to make drone buyers in the EASA member states, so the EU primarily, very, very happy. The DJI Air 3 will be a C1 labeled drone, meaning that you'll be able to use the drone in the A1 airspace subcategory, again in the EASA states. That's sadly not within the UK one. So essentially, you're going to be able to fly your drone in congested areas, cities, etc., and without any required separation from uninvolved people. You only need to avoid unintentional flights over people. There's no certification required, and you only need to register the drone, read the manual, pass what is the equivalent of the UK Flyer ID, the A1A3, which is a very simple test. So really, with the new Mavic 3 Pro stepping over the threshold into the C2 classification, this is obviously great news for drone flyers in the EASA region. It isn't quite as good news, of course, for us in the UK market. However, last year's decision from the DFT means that the C-class label drones are not recognized. So as originally planned here in the UK, we're not currently enjoying C labels at all. So you can still fly the drone perfectly legally in the UK. You just need to ignore the C1 label and fly within the legacy transition system. So what does that actually mean? This means registering the drone, passing the Flyer ID, and without any other certification, you'll need to stay away from congested areas, and even things like villages, etc., and keep a significant separation from uninvolved people. Now, you can gain access to the airspace, the A2 airspace, as it's called for this in particular, in the UK by taking, unsurprisingly, the A2 certificate of competency, but that only gives you access to congested areas with the caveat of still keeping a 50-meter separation from uninvolved people. This means it is, in my opinion, it's unlikely that the Air 3 will be hugely popular in terms of sale numbers here in the UK. Certainly not as popular as it would have been if it was a fully a usable C1 drone for sure. It's a shame, but perhaps the upcoming consultations will bring good news in terms of the drone classifications in the open category. And again, this is a leak video, but I'm going to say to everybody in the UK again, these consultations which come out, we absolutely must be fully aware of them, and we have to take part in them to try and ensure that we get more access to things like C-class drones or a good equivalent, basically. Now, there is, of course, another part of the release that will prove very popular wherever you are, and that is the RC2 controller. With a host of improvements, including the new sporty-looking external antennas, we should see this new controller being very, very popular. Although in terms of helping sales of the Air 3, I think we might have to wait a while for the RC2 to be shown in stock separately for a little while. Time is obviously going to tell in terms of that. Now, having a quick look at some of your messages here that people are having a chat here. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. It's great to see you all. So many of our regulars, and I see a few new names in there as well, actually. Brian Keane, one of the names that I don't immediately recognize. Let me actually bring this up on our other chats here. Bear with just 1 second. As it comes up. There we go. All pretty on the screen in front of us. So Brian Keane says over 500 grams and the Mini 3 sensor. I can't see where this fits. I think, Brian, I agree with you in the UK terms. Obviously, over 500 grams. If it was sub 500 in the UK with the A2 CFC, so there's a lot of acronyms for the US people here, but it means that we would have been able to fly the drone, fly the Air 3, actually in some pretty cool airspace in congested areas, the A1 airspace. But as it's over 500, it does become that 50-meter separation in the open category, at least. he can't see where it fits with the Mini 3 sensor. I'm told reliably, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, that the algorithm is phenomenal on the video on this particular drone. So I think it's going to have a good place where it is actually going to fit within there for sure. But we're going to have to wait and see. Obviously, the hands-on will obviously be where we see that. And again, Lambo Drives Lambo, good to see you, sir. One of our channel members is very much reiterating that with the new and improved Mini 3 Pro sensor. It's what it feels like, isn't it? Obviously, the telephoto lens, I think, does start to really make it a little bit more exciting. To me, I feel like there's a large part of this drone that actually it's because the Mavic 3 is now a C2 drone, whereas of course that was a C1. I think that this will obviously in the very large EASA, it's 25 something like 25 member countries all across Europe who can use their drones with that C label where it actually means something, and that's a big marketplace. So the Air 3 is going to sell like hotcakes across that marketplace because it's a small, lightweight dual camera with a telephoto camera on there as well, and the fact that it's C1, I think is going to make it a very, very big seller across there, just in my opinion personally. But yes, Lambo does say that's just his opinion, but hey, you're allowed one, Lambo. Let's have a look at what else anybody is saying here. Derek Thomas, good to see you, hope you're well. The drone specs look good, but they are releasing them at such a quick pace, it's hard to know which one makes sense to purchase. And I completely agree with you there, sir. And it is one of those ones where it has become a little bit in terms of, there are just so many good drones around. The drone it's replacing, the Air 2S, is my favorite DJI drone, apart from the regulations, unfortunately, but it is, as just straight cameras drones go, this is my favorite camera drone. And in actual fact, the Air 2 that this replaced was still an exceptional drone when this drone came out. So they are certainly releasing both the Air series and obviously general drones at a high pace. You look at, there's been 7 or 8 different types of Mavic 3 already. So it's one of those things where I think it's frustrating, but also I think there's obviously a lot there, and I think the way that we're looking at drones is going to change from the point of view that we're not just going to be excited. Yay! It's the Mavic 3 came out, and it was our first big release for a good while. People have been waiting for the Mavic 3 for a very long time. Now that we're starting to see a lot more drones dropping almost as iterations and nothing's really leaping forward, I think perhaps it's going to be much more about filling niches. And whereas the Air 2S had its niche to fill, and obviously the Mavic 3 Pro is very much filling a niche at the moment, and it's a very large niche, a very successful selling drone, then perhaps the Air 3, once it's out, and once it's on the ground, perhaps it's going to surprise a few people, basically, and be something which does have a true audience. Because I do feel like the Air 2S has a very, very loyal following, frankly. Let's have a look at what else people are saying here. Alan Kent, I love to fly my sub 250 drone, and I hope I'm doing it right. Mini 3 Pro. Always let Drone Assist know what I'm doing. Yeah, excellent, Alan. And to be frank, it is the king of drones here in the UK and in so many places, but particularly here in the UK at the moment, because the Mini 3 Pro being sub 250, having such a great camera on it for that size drone as well, is just something which is phenomenal, frankly. And that's where I worry in terms of sales for the Air 3 in the UK, certainly. John Cooper, good to see you, sir. Looks pretty sweet. Yes, it does, sir. Drones I view personally never had any issue with the M3P signal, so DJI RC2 is of little interest. Yeah, I think that, again, in the early days before they fixed it with a few updates and a tweak here, a tweak there on their algorithm, there were some people having issues with it, but I think the RC2 is more to move things forward for the OcuSync 4. It would be interesting. I wouldn't be surprised if it is going to work on the older drones as well, which is how they seem to have been handling things with their screen controllers recently. But we'll have to wait and see, because it is DJI and they're very, very hard to predict sometimes. Yeah, David Webb, that's not an unpopular opinion. Never going to buy a DJI that is factory restricted. You wouldn't buy a car with a speed limiter on it. And many people feel that way about the drones as well. I mean, I personally do, because I don't find those restrictions hold me back whatsoever. But yes, there we go. Yeah. Good news with drones when it comes to CA is not something I believe in anymore. Yes, it's it does sometimes feel a little bit like Santa Claus, doesn't it, basically? Hogarth's Astrography. I haven't seen you before. Great to see you here. Hogarth Astrophotography. As a new viewer, I'm going to get your name right. I'm sorry. When are the CAA re-looking at the drone classifications for the UK, or have I misunderstood your comment? No, you haven't. There is an investigation of the open category coming up. We should start to hear about some of the consultations within the next few weeks. You will hear about it here on Geeksvana when they're happening as well, and we will be talking you through them, similar to the consultations we had before about extending the legacy period, etc. But this is a bit more of an in-depth look coming out the back of this new transition period. Now, the new transition period runs until 2026. However, the consultations are starting this year, and there's nothing saying that some of the changes won't actually be in place before that. One of the things that they're going to be discussing is how to deal with the classification of drones. The only reason, essentially, that we didn't take up the C-label drone system, which was already in place in UK law, is because we didn't have the correct bodies in place. We didn't have the correct organizations instructed and in place. You could argue how easy or how difficult that would have been to have happened to allow us to have C-label drones, but it just wasn't there. But it's going to be very, very important that we all take part in those consultations, because that is one of the pieces of information that they're going to be deciding. So to me, it's an important one. But no, you didn't mishear me there. Okay, and one other thing I wanted to have a very quick look at, which if I press this, yes, Mike always runs out on me sometimes, doesn't he? Let me just fix that very, very quickly. Bear with me. Here we go. And there we go. Okay, that got knocked out there for some reason. I've no idea why. But thank you guys for letting me know in the chat. As I say, here we have the Igor's Twitter account. He managed to find some of the retail guide for the new drone for the Chinese market. Now, those images have actually been put through a image translation, so some of the words there might actually not actually translate fully, but most of it does. And as you can see, it's saying it does for the first time have the omnidirectional obstacle avoidance for the Air series, so it's going to be very interesting to see how that performs. RPAS 5.0, talking about the newest image transmission, that it has the O4 transmitter, so up to 20 kilometers of signal transmission distance. Obviously, that's in FCC. 6 antennas with 2 transmitters and 4 receivers for more stable transmission, which means we're going to get 1080 60 frames per second transmission onto the RC2, which is exciting, I think. The second generation of enhanced transmission module as well, with an embedded design, convenient storage, dual antenna adaptive switching, 4G signal, more stable to support eSIM. Now, obviously, that side of things isn't something that we've actually had access to pretty much anywhere UK, US, EU-wise at all so far. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. I don't expect to see it, frankly. That would allow us to obviously fly over the mobile network, basically. And the maximum flight time of 46 minutes and supporting 100-watt fast charging. So 60 minutes and there'll be a full charger. And again, it's just confirming there that you have the multi-charger is actually going to charge all batteries at the same time, which I think is, something which is going to be exciting. I think it's going to be interesting to see. And the other one here, which I thought was interesting, is this tile that Igor published, because again, it does show some of the differences between the specs. And as you can see here, you've got the orange specs sort of coming up to show the extra advantages. There is a bit of difference there between the Air 3 and the Mavic 3 Pro, obviously. Certainly, there's going to be a price difference. Certainly, there are some spec differences. Where this is, as I say, where this is really going to, in the marketplace that I think is going to really make a difference, is the EU EASA member states, where the Air 3 obviously has that C1 label, whereas the Mavic 3 Pro is a C2. So you're really going to start seeing some benefits there. But as I say, I'm reliably informed that the algorithm makes the Air 3 a really, really good little drone in terms of the video quality. And then you have, again, the fact that, as it says here, between the RC and RC2, there's the 4 antennas, 2 transmitters and 4 receivers. So that is obviously the upgrade. But there's also a 32 gig memory there rather than the 8 gig memory on the RC, which again is pretty interesting. But the nits are saying, seem to be talking about the same, the 60 frames per second there. And nothing else really changing there. So it's going to be interesting to see exactly how that pans out in terms of the actual the controller itself and just how popular it will be. But I would predict personally that it's actually going to be a pretty popular controller all by itself. I'm personally very excited about seeing it as well. So there we go. So we're going to be seeing the Air 3 launching next week, as I've been saying, but there are some other launches starting to snap at the heels of it, as you can see here, and some of the leaks are actually already starting to appear. So do keep an eye on the channel for updates on those. And yeah, we'll see you guys next time on Geeksvana Live. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you tomorrow evening for the drone show at 8 p.m. UK time. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.